Most horror fans assume the final moments of a film represent the director's true vision, the definitive ending of the story. But hidden behind layers of studio revisions and quiet interventions lies another reality. Some endings survived for only a fleeting moment. They appeared once, in a dimly lit test screening, before being stripped away, re-edited, or sealed in storage. These erased finales were not minor variations. They were bold statements, unexpected twists, unsettling revelations, and emotionally crushing resolutions that tested the limits of what filmmakers were allowed to show. Some were deemed too disturbing, others too ambiguous. A few were simply considered wrong for the audience a studio hoped to attract, and so they vanished. What remain today are fragments, a technician's recollection of a single harrowing shot, a production note hinting at an abandoned storyline, or whispers of a VHS workprint shown only once before being tucked out of sight. Each lost ending acts like a ghost, still shaping the mythos of the film, even though no one can watch it anymore. Tonight, we revisit 15 horror movies whose true conclusions were witnessed briefly and then concealed. These are the hidden alternate finales that altered the meaning of their films, and were erased after only one screening. Fact 1 Magic 1978. Magic is unsettling even in its theatrical form, but the film originally ended with a psychological collapse so profound that early viewers reportedly sat frozen long after the scene faded to black. Instead of dying beside Fats, the discarded finale depicted Corky slipping entirely into the persona he feared most. In this version, Corky survived the confrontation but was no longer recognizable as himself. He sat in the dim cabin, holding Fats against his chest, as though cradling a living companion. When Peggy entered, the voice that greeted her wasn't Corky's but Fats, soft, eerie, and delivered with unnerving calm. Corky's eyes never quite aligned with hers. They drifted, unfocused, as if the part of him that once occupied his body had retreated into the shadows. Peggy fled in terror, leaving Corky alone with the dummy. The last shot reportedly showed Corky rocking gently in the cabin's half-light, whispering to Fats with a calmness that made the scene unbearably chilling. Executives feared audiences would be disturbed by the implication that Corky's identity had completely dissolved. They called the scene emotionally suffocating and demanded a more conventional, less psychologically demanding ending. No footage of this original conclusion has appeared publicly, leaving only the chilling recollections of those who saw it once. Fact 2. The New Kids 1985. The New Kids disguises itself as a defiant teen survival thriller, but the first ending ever assembled peeled back that facade and forced viewers into the emotional aftermath of violence without comfort or catharsis. In the original finale, the showdown with Eddie extended beyond the amusement park. He escaped the chaos and hunted the siblings back to their home. The fight that followed was brutal and intimate, confined to their kitchen, lit only by flashing police lights seeping through the windows. When Abby delivered the fatal strike, she didn't stand victorious. She sank into a chair at the table, trembling, staring at the blood on her hands as though it belonged to a stranger. The scene reportedly lingered on her in silence while officers approached outside. No uplifting music, no reassuring dialogue, just a young girl realizing she would never be the same. Studios feared the tone was too heavy for a film aimed at younger audiences. They ordered a new ending that emphasized triumph rather than trauma, burying the original conclusion. No visual remnants of the lost sequence have surfaced, but descriptions of it endure as one of the most honest and painful moments the film almost revealed. Fact 3. Alone in the Dark 1982. Before New Line Cinema became known for bold, franchise-defining horror, it released Alone in the Dark, a grim thriller already steeped in paranoia and violence. But the film first ended with a sequence so chaotic and nihilistic that the studio immediately rejected it, believing audiences would be overwhelmed by its scale and darkness. In the abandoned finale, the rioting sparked by the escaped killers didn't fade into the background, it consumed the entire town. Flames lit up the streets as terrified civilians turned on one another. Sirens wailed, windows shattered, and the killers walked through the pandemonium unnoticed, slipping into the crowd like shadows blending with fire. One shot reportedly lingered on Frank Hawks, moving calmly through the chaos. Buildings burned around him, yet he appeared serene, absorbing the devastation with a quiet sense of inevitability. Before disappearing into the smoke, he delivered a final line, a whispered acknowledgement that everything unfolding was expected. It only takes one spark to set the night free. Executives found the ending too large in scope and too bleak in message. They demanded a scaled-back conclusion that restored a sense of order rather than depicting its total collapse. To this day, no footage of the original riot sequence has been recovered, though those who witnessed it insist it was the film's most unforgettable moment. Fact 4. The Lift, 1983. Although The Lift is known for its mechanical menace, the film originally concluded with a revelation that pushed it directly into bio-horror territory. Rather than portraying the elevator as a rogue AI system, the lost ending suggested it had begun a grotesque transformation. Crew testimonies describe an early finale in which Felix descended into a hidden chamber beneath the shaft. There, he discovered a strange, pulsing organism, a fusion of electrical wiring and embryonic tissue, shaped vaguely like a developing human form. Its surface twitched with rhythmic contractions, as if responding to Felix's presence. The implication was that the machine was not malfunctioning, but evolving into something alive. Producers found the idea too abstract and feared it would alienate viewers expecting a straightforward thriller. They insisted on a more conventional ending, removing the biological element entirely. No footage of the creature has surfaced, though rumors persist of still frames viewed only by a handful of technicians. Fact 5. The Incubus, 1982. The Incubus sits firmly within supernatural horror, but its lost ending veered sharply into psychological territory, transforming the story's central mystery into something deeply personal and terrifying. According to those familiar with early edits, the original finale revealed that the demonic presence had not been vanquished but had taken root inside Sam. After the final confrontation, Sam awakened in a dim hospital room. When he looked toward a mirror across from his bed, his reflection appeared seconds out of sync, smiling faintly while Sam's real face remained fearful and strained. As the camera moved closer, the reflection's grin widened unnaturally, twisting into something inhuman. Sam reached out, but the reflection moved independently, closing the distance with predatory intent. The scene reportedly ended on this image, leaving viewers with the chilling realization that Sam had become the new vessel for the Incubus. Test audiences reacted strongly to the disturbing intimacy of the scene. Executives feared the psychological implications were too intense and ordered a more ambiguous ending that kept the evil external. Rumored makeup tests hint at what might have been shown, but the completed sequence has never resurfaced. Shall I continue? Fact 6. The Funhouse, 1981. Tobe Hooper's The Funhouse closes with a familiar image, Amy stumbling out of the carnival, shaken but alive. Yet the film originally ended on a far more haunting note, one that suggested survival did not guarantee recovery. In the first cut, Amy didn't collapse or cry. She wandered through the empty fairgrounds at dawn, moving as though detached from her own body. Carny workers drifted around her, but their faces were distorted by soft focus close-ups, giving the world a dreamlike, fractured quality. Amy barely acknowledged them. Her expression was blank, hollow, as if she had retreated into herself to escape the memories of the night. The camera reportedly followed her in an unbroken shot as she walked beneath sagging banners and flickering bulbs, her silence more disturbing than any scream. The scene ended with Amy standing motionless in the pale morning light, suggesting a young woman forever altered alive but fundamentally unreachable. Executives rejected the ending, calling it too emotionally heavy and fearing audiences would leave the theater unsettled in the wrong way. A revised, more conventional conclusion was shot to offer closure. The original footage has never appeared in any release, and its absence only deepens the film's aura of lingering trauma. Fact 7. The Watcher in the Woods, 1980. When The Watcher in the Woods briefly premiered with its original ending, the reaction was so immediate and bewildered that Disney withdrew the film within days. The discarded finale wasn't just strange, it was otherworldly in a way few expected from the studio. In this early version, the mysterious Watcher materialized in full form, a shimmering insect-like entity created through elaborate practical effects. The finale depicted a dimensional exchange with Karen, bathed in surreal lighting and warped visual transitions that left viewers unsure whether they were witnessing a rescue or a cosmic accident. The creature's appearance was described as eerie rather than heroic, a design that unsettled audiences far more than intended. Critics mocked the sequence as bizarre and frightening, prompting Disney to recut the entire ending into something more grounded and emotionally digestible. The original version became a rarity, preserved only in the memories of early viewers and in a handful of low-quality bootleg recordings. Its disappearance cemented it as one of the most infamous lost endings in horror history. Fact 8. The Unseen 1980. The quiet dread that defines The Unseen once culminated in a finale that shifted the story from personal horror to a chilling, open-ended threat. Instead of containing the terror within the farmhouse, the original ending showed that the danger had slipped free. According to those familiar with the early cut, Junior was not killed in the final struggle. Instead, he fled into a fog-heavy night, wandering with the confused posture of a child lost and overwhelmed. The camera reportedly followed him into a small town, where he observed a family waiting at a bus stop. The film ended not with violence, but with the sinister suggestion that it was imminent, that the horror was ready to begin again, this time in an unsuspecting place. Test audiences reacted sharply to the bleak message, calling the ending disturbing in a way that stays with you. The studio deemed it too hopeless and opted for a more definitive conclusion. While some stills hint at nighttime shoots not present in the final film, no footage of the abandoned epilogue has surfaced. Fact 9. The Sentinel 1977. While The Sentinel already unsettles audiences with its religious dread, the film's original ending ventured much deeper into the spiritual horrors hinted at throughout the story. Instead of closing with a subdued acceptance of Allison's new role, the first cut depicted a full-scale supernatural awakening. Early viewers described Allison undergoing a dramatic, visible transformation. Her eyes reportedly clouded over, and faint, glowing markings surfaced across her skin like divine inscriptions. Figures, some angelic, others tormented, emerged in the corners of the room, drifting as if pulled into her presence. The apartment filled with a blinding, otherworldly radiance that suggested Allison had become not just a sentinel, but a living boundary between realms. The intensity of the sequence alarmed Universal executives, who feared negative reactions from religious groups already wary of the film. The ending was stripped down, its cosmic scale muted into something far more subdued. To this day, no confirmed footage of the original ending has surfaced. The descriptions alone, however, reveal a far more ambitious vision than the one audiences received. Fact 10. The Boogeyman 1980. The supernatural dread of the Boogeyman was once amplified by an ending that shifted the film's mythology onto its main character. Instead of suggesting the evil still resided in the mirror, the original finale implied that Lacey herself had become its new home. Accounts from those who viewed the early cut describe a scene in which Lacey returned to the farmhouse. As she approached the shattered mirror pieces, her reflection behaved independently, smiling faintly, even as her face remained stricken with fear. The longer she stared, the more animated the reflection became, as though the entity had claimed her from within. The last shot reportedly focused on the reflection reaching toward her, offering a chilling suggestion that the evil had fused with her identity. Test audiences found the symbolism confusing and too abstract, prompting the studio to replace the ending with a simpler supernatural tease. The more conventional finale supported franchise potential, while the reflective possession concept was quietly discarded. No footage from the lost version has emerged, and it remains one of the film's most persistent legends. Fact 11. Eyes of a Stranger 1981. Though Eyes of a Stranger is already steeped in tension, the film once ended in a way that left its protagonist irrevocably shattered. The early edit offered no healing, no catharsis, only the lingering weight of trauma. In this earlier version, the killer managed to escape the apartment fight long enough to confront Tracy inside an elevator shaft. The struggle was fierce but brief, ending with the killer's fall. Yet the aftermath was far more haunting. Tracy, severely injured and emotionally broken, was shown lying in a hospital bed, her expression blank. The television in the room played a muted news report about the killer's death, but she did not react. The implication was clear. Though she survived physically, she had paid a devastating psychological price. The studio found this ending far too grim, particularly given the character's vulnerable condition throughout the film. Executives insisted on a revised finale that restored a sense of empowerment. Despite persistent rumors of a VHS screener containing the lost ending, no confirmed evidence has ever surfaced. Fact 12. The House on Skull Mountain 1974. The House on Skull Mountain contains enough supernatural atmosphere in its final cut, but its original ending reportedly pushed the spiritual elements far beyond what the studio felt comfortable releasing. Instead of closing with restrained ritual imagery, the Lost finale erupted with a display of ancestral power that reshaped the film's entire tone. According to individuals who worked on set, the discarded ending depicted towering specters materializing around the estate figures of the ancestors whose presence had only been hinted at before. Lorena stood at the center of a spiritual convergence, her features subtly shifting as if channeling generations of voices. Her tone deepened and multiplied, creating the impression that she had become a conduit for forces older than the mansion itself. The final shot in this version reportedly showed her at dawn, poised at the estate's entrance with an expression that suggested neither triumph nor defeat, but a new, unsettling authority. Studio executives, alarmed by the intensity of the imagery and worried about backlash over portrayals of mysticism, cut the sequence entirely. The replacement ending muted the supernatural scale, leaving the original vision to fade into rumor. Fact 13. Dead of Winter, 1987. In its released form, Dead of Winter concludes with Katie prevailing and escaping the horrors of the mansion. But the original ending presented a far bleaker reality, one that stripped away any sense of victory or survival. Those who viewed the early cut described a long, quiet sequence of Katie staggering into the snow after defeating her captors. Exhausted and gravely wounded, she collapsed several yards from the house as a storm intensified around her. The camera slowly widened, framing her small, motionless figure against a vast, white landscape. There were no voices calling her name, no footsteps approaching, no sign she would ever rise again. Executives balked. They felt the tragedy was overwhelming and risked leaving audiences despondent rather than shocked. A reshoot was swiftly ordered, replacing the somber ending with one that preserved Katie's life and restored a sense of narrative closure. To this day, no footage from the original sequence has surfaced. If it still exists, it remains hidden, an alternate ending that reflects the film's darkest possible truth. Fact 14. Curtains, 1983. The chaotic production of Curtains has become part of its mystique, but few realize just how dramatically its original finale differed from the version released. Instead of centering the ending on Patty's survival, the first cut placed Samantha at the heart of a deeply unsettling theatrical nightmare. Crew members who saw the early edit recalled a final scene set on a dim, vacant stage. Samantha stood under a single spotlight, delivering an intense monologue as though performing before an unseen audience. Around her were the lifeless bodies of her rivals, positioned like grotesque stage decorations. As she continued speaking, her tone shifted from controlled to unhinged, revealing a mind fracturing under the weight of ambition and madness. The studio rejected the sequence outright. Executives felt the surreal imagery and psychological focus deviated too far from slasher conventions and would alienate mainstream viewers. They demanded a new, more traditional ending that removed Samantha's breakdown entirely. None of the footage has been publicly released, and only fragmented accounts remain. Yet many believe this discarded finale would have been one of the genre's most haunting send-offs. Fact 15. The Legacy, 1978. Before The Legacy received its final theatrical form, the film ended on a scene that dramatically redefined Margaret's transformation. Instead of the subdued, enigmatic conclusion audiences know, the original finale made her evolution unmistakably dark. In this lost version, Margaret didn't merely accept her inheritance, she stepped into it with a chilling sense of purpose. Witnesses from the first screening described a sequence in which she roamed the mansion as though claiming every corner of it. Her face carried an eerie composure, and her eyes held a faint shimmer that hinted at something beyond human. Rather than leaving viewers uncertain about her fate, the scene boldly implied that Margaret had fully merged with the sinister lineage that had chosen her. The reaction at the screening was immediate discomfort. Some viewers felt the transformation pushed the character too far into villainy. Others thought the explicitness undermined the film's carefully cultivated mystery. Within days, studio executives ordered the ending removed and replaced with a more suggestive, toned-down conclusion. Rumors persist of a single print containing the discarded sequence, but no verifiable copy has surfaced. What remains is the memory of a finale that dared to reveal too much. Bonus film Paper House, 1988. Paper House is remembered for its haunting blend of childhood imagination and dreamlike melancholy, but the original ending was far more emotionally devastating than the version audiences ultimately received. Instead of offering a bittersweet glimmer of hope, the lost conclusion leaned fully into grief. In the early version, Mark's real-world condition worsened in perfect parallel with the disintegration of Anna's dreamscape. As she raced through the collapsing world she once controlled, walls folding like fragile sketches, landscapes fading to white, she reached for Mark in desperation. But this time, he slipped through her grasp as the dream shattered around them. Anna awoke to the crushing news that Mark had passed away during the night. The film then followed her to the lonely hill where the paper house first existed in her imagination. She carried her sketchbook with her, but not to create anything new. Instead, she tore out the page on which she had drawn Mark and the house her refuge, their connection, and released it into the wind. The drifting page caught by the breeze became the film's final image, a quiet acknowledgement of love, loss, and the fragility of the worlds we build to survive. Executives found the ending emotionally overwhelming and feared it would alienate audiences, expecting a gentler fantasy. The sequence was removed, softened, and replaced. Yet many who heard of the original cut believe it was the film's truest expression, a finale that embraced sorrow without apology. The stories we explored tonight remind us that the endings preserved on film are often only the versions deemed acceptable, not the versions originally envisioned. Hidden scenes, erased finales, and forgotten edits still linger in private vaults and dusty storage rooms, waiting for someone curious enough to pull them back into the light. These lost conclusions may never surface, but their shadows continue to shape how we see the films that survived without them. If you want us to keep uncovering the buried histories of horror, the endings concealed, the moments cut away, the versions almost lost forever, let us know in the comments below. Until our next descent into the unfamiliar, keep watching, keep questioning, and trust nothing that makes it to the final cut.